Welcome back to From Corporate to Cash Flow. We're Andrea Cannon and Liz Schwab, two pharmacists navigating the process of building time and financial freedom through real estate investing and lending while working our day jobs. Navigating the journey is difficult, but our podcast guests are experts in showing us how it's done. And today we have Brittani Gardner-Evans. Brittani, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, ladies.
Yes, thanks so much for joining us, Brittani. I'm super excited to get to know you a little bit more. So to start off here, we would love to learn about your journey into real estate. So if you could give us a little bit of background on, how you got here. Did you have a regular W-2? And currently, what you're focusing on today?
Sure thing. I started in 2008 actually with insurance and was an insurance broker, health insurance, and also property and casualty. That transitioned to real estate. I got my real estate agent license in 2012. And from 2012 to 2017, I maintained a W-2 while learning real estate agent roles in various capacities.
Okay, very nice. Is there something that prompted you to lean more into the real estate entrepreneurship avenue, or kind of what was your thought process there?
Yeah, so with insurance sales, commission-based roles were always something that was attractive to me, performance-based roles. I knew that I wanted to pursue real estate as an insurance broker. I thought maybe I'd get into the real estate agent role, and I quickly realized I didn't want to represent buyers and sellers from a retail standpoint. I strictly went into the investment side. So it was really self-serving for me to learn more about transactions, how to structure deals, how to evaluate and underwrite deals, and very quickly went from residential real estate transactions to commercial. Then I took roles as executive assistants to commercial brokers in different firms and even commercial developers. I was really trying to get a little taste of every facet of the real estate investment world and evaluate quickly residential and commercial so I could decide which track I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm. And is this something that you were working for another company doing, or were you all out on your own doing this?
Yeah, I took roles with commercial brokerage local to St. Louis, Missouri. I represented buyers and sellers on my own as a side role. There was no non-compete, so it was perfectly acceptable to be an executive assistant in the commercial brokerage and also represent my friends and family. It gave me a test and experience in drafting contracts and evaluating deals, but also learning things that I felt like were out of my reach at the time.
Yeah. So certainly working in not real estate, and insurance gave you that platform to move into real estate. So wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what you're doing now in real estate?
Yeah, so in 2017, I left, transitioned to do various things. So I did my first creative finance deals. I was a big fan of bigger pockets in the early 2010. So my wife and I actually took on a BRRRR project, a 4-family. We lived in one unit, house hacked, renovated the whole thing, and we were just kind of testing out different strategies. And I compounded that into pursuing healthcare style homes. So we looked at assisted living facilities, eventually landing on neurodivergent co-living models. So right now we're an operator in the state of Missouri for the neurodivergent population. We operate a Medicaid waivered agency. And that is really where all of our portfolio is currently serving. Our healthcare operation and our residential and commercial portfolio kind of serves that healthcare business. So we've learned to merge the two worlds together, and one feeds the other.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. Can you maybe dive into that just a little bit more? I understand it's for neurodivergent, but what does that process look like? Does the state identify those individuals, then you maybe register with the state, or can you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the term IDD stands for intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we serve the IDD population. Our agency contracts with the state Medicaid pool, and all of our contracts are 100% Medicaid funded at a state level. So there are things beyond that, state, federal partnership for dollars, but essentially all of our funds and all of our revenue is generated through Medicaid funding. In order to qualify for the Medicaid waiver programs that we support, you have to have a diagnosis of an intellectual or developmental disability before the age of 22, or the exception to that would be a traumatic brain injury after the age of 22. So we really don't do traditional selling. It's more of a relationship-based model where you interview different agencies, find an agency that you feel like is best suited for you, and based on the service lines that they offer, you choose their residential programs or a host of other services you can have.
And then what is like your role specifically in this? Are you overseeing the houses then and checking in on those, or like how does that work?
Yeah, so I founded the agency in 2019. I learned very quickly that this business is a high liability and heavy compliance type of business, right? We're talking about human services and human lives and a very vulnerable population. And my intention was just to be the real estate provider for those homes. But I quickly learned that if I'm going to expect to be the better provider and provide better quality than my competitors, I'd have to really be hands-on, learn the business. And I've just been in the operator role since. It took about 5 years to learn the business in and out. I don't have a clinical background. I didn't really have a model I was following. So everything that I've learned, I've just learned through developing relationships with like families that have adult children with IDD or case managers. And I've really stayed hands-on with the operation of it. I like to train all of our leaders that come into the organization and teach them how to set the bar, how to develop relationships beyond just a clinical transactional type of service.
Okay, and then you mentioned that you were doing this since 2019, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And what was the name of the business or the system that you've created?
The agency is Avant Supported Living, and we got our name from the term avant-garde, if you're familiar with that. We really set out to be forerunner, kind of, we're almost the black sheep in our industry because we kind of go against the grain when we step up the level of service that we provide and really challenge the status quo for what good care looks like.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm just not super familiar with this. Can you maybe just give me an example of what you mean by that? Maybe like what does good care look like in comparison to the status quo?
Yeah, well, I think that's subjective. I think for us, we find that our competitors often warehouse people, and this is all based on feedback that we're getting from family members that are seeking different providers. So some of the common complaints are my loved one is stagnant in their development. If it's a young person and they're trying to develop independence, they're stagnant in their development. They're not obtaining their goals. Their medical care is subpar, and so their health is declining. Maybe they're over medicated. Maybe they're developing new chronic issues because of lack of a holistic approach. Maybe they're mentally understimulated, so there's no growth as far as social networks. There's no new skill development happening. And also the agencies are almost holding them captive. That's some of the complaints we hear too, right? Like our goal is to be a transitional stepping stone. Now, of course, with someone with really high support needs, that may not be the case. It may not be a lifetime of care, but really we know that we've done our job if we can transition and fade those supports over time for someone, because we're really aggressive with our goal setting and our achieving those goals.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I bet that having to and wanting to set this up in a different way than others means you have to really trailblaze those new, exciting ways to do things that are really above board. And so I applaud you for trying to do things the right way, because I think, purpose-driven investing with a passion for having done things the right way in general. Like those two things coming together is just so powerful. So that's a really cool thing for, you to share with everyone. And I like hearing that. And can you talk about like do you have many of these homes, and like how has that evolved, and how much time does this take for you to do?
Yeah, so I would be lying if I say it didn't take a lot of time. I think I probably commit more time than I have to, but it's really because it's important to me to uphold our promises to our customers. As far as number of homes we have, we kind of did a bell curve on our residential model. We started as a residential provider for the first 3 years. Just amid COVID, like 3 months before COVID hit, we started ramping up our residential operations, and then we were kind of stagnant. We felt the crunch with the staffing crisis, and over those first 3 years, we found that we were still learning the residential model. It was really tough on our staffing and our well-being and our leadership team. They were on call. There was tons of turnover. We kind of threw caution to the wind and pivoted really hard in 2021. And we went solely to a daytime skill development model. So we closed our residential homes once those people were moved to different homes and moved on. We didn't take on any new residential clients, but for the next 3 years, we solely focused on day programs. And that's like a daytime college alternative for a young person post high school to, develop skills and meet new people. So I'm saying all of this to say we don't have a ton of residential homes. Most of our current clients are day program clients. So we have about 45 of those. And what we found is we couldn't totally discard the residential model. 90% of our clients are between the age of 18 to 25. And we know we're doing the right thing because we have now families saying, my person is ready to move on to their own home, or they're coming to us directly and saying, I want to live on my own. I feel empowered. Tell me what the next steps are. Tell me how we can hit those goals that you helped me develop. And so we got back into the residential model, very hesitant and cautiously saying, if we were to do this, what would this look like? And so we put some guardrails on it, right? We developed a model where we have professional home partners now instead of like block staffing. So we don't do traditional 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7 shifts. We build co-living models where you can have a person in the home with you, sharing your expenses, also acting as a mentor. They get a really financially rewarding position from home, and you get a consistent person sharing your home rather than shift workers coming into your home. So all of that being said, our residential model is still a smaller portion of our program, but we're ramping it up rapidly. We just got back involved in the residential care in the last 9 months.
I love the intentionality of all of this, and it seems like you've scaled it in the right way too, because if you have that number of people coming to you ready for the next step, it means that you prepared them for that next step really appropriately, which is just really cool. Like I love hearing about people, and we have people on here that are really making a difference in their community. And so I've kind of already alluded to this, but I really applaud you for doing it this way, because it seems like hopefully you're profiting from it as well, so you can continue to grow it, but you're doing the right by the people that you're helping provide these houses for and these services for. So man, this is really cool. So thinking about everything that you've learned so far, because I know this has been a journey, right? You're in the residential, you shifted out of the residential, you're back in the residential again. What's the biggest lesson that you learned that you wish you knew sooner in this journey of real estate and these types of homes?
If I could do it all over again, I wish I took the pressure off myself, right? I felt like an imposter for the first 5 years. And I felt like I don't have a clinical background. I don't know, I'm afraid to make the wrong move. I feel like we can't do residential services and meet the needs of some of the clients that are coming to us. And really at the heart of it, my personal core values align with our company core values. Of course, that's really what they're built upon. But essentially at the end of the day, good human service delivery looks like being a good human. So we kind of demystified what it looks like to be an operator at a high level. And we just tell people, when we train our mentors, that's our direct care staff, when we train them, we're emphasizing people have two buckets, right? They have an attention bucket and they have a power bucket or a needs bucket, and you need to make sure both buckets are full. So when you restrict someone, like if you're restricting a person with IDD and you're treating a young adult like a child, they're going to have behavioral concerns, right? You're going to blame them for their rebellious nature or their defiant behavior. And really, they just want power and control over their own life. And so let's take the mystery out of it and quit diagnosing them with like oppositional defiant disorder or something bigger than that, and just say, hey, yes, they don't like people telling them what to do. They don't like people making decisions for them. I don't either, right? Like, so just be a good human and treat someone with respect and give them the autonomy to have control over their own life and empower them like you would your own friends, right? There's no magic button. You don't have to have a clinical background. Now, I'm not saying like there's no validity to a behavioral analyst or something like that. Definitely there is. But I wholeheartedly believe that most of the problems that people with IDD face are not their problem. It's society's problem, right? We're treating them like they're less than. We're treating them like they can't make their own decisions. And so you take that out of the way, and it's amazing what you do when you build someone's confidence or empower them in the right way. So if I would have known what I know now, I would have just trusted my instinct and remembered that I am good enough. I am worthy to treat other people in a way that they need to be treated. And henceforth, the bar is not set very high for good care. It's just be a good human.
Yeah, you can tell, like you definitely like lit up when you're answering some of these questions. Like, your smile just got really big, and I was like, oh. So you can tell that you're really passionate about this, and you are a very good person to advocate for these individuals, just because you can tell that that passion exists. And it's funny you say, I think a lot of our problems will be solved if everyone just acts, like be a good person. It's like, yeah, I agree. If we could just apply that across the board to like everything, I think all our problems would be fixed, right? And I wish it was that simple. And a lot of times it is. But I think you hit that right on the nail. I did have some more questions related to this though. So can you talk maybe about some barriers or just like obstacles in this space that maybe you have to overcome?
So definitely, I feel like I fight against the powers that be. We're talking about government funds, and so there's a lot of gatekeeping happening. And it's kind of I found that it's an industry that doesn't like new provocative way of doing things. Don't come in and rock the boat, right? Don't come and disrupt the system. And don't try to rework the system. Like, we were fine before you came along. So I felt like some of the obstacles I faced were a result of being like the new kid on the block, trying to challenge the status quo, trying to uphold the policies and the regulations that are in place for advocating for people and empowering people. Example, advocating for additional funding because there are some deficits in the services that we're providing as a industry for people. When you come in and you try to request more funds or request additional resources, it's sometimes gatekeeping. And I feel like one of our obstacles is just going out of the way to justify the need for that. And that's fine. Like, I'm totally okay with justifying the needs, but I feel like there's unnecessary gatekeeping that makes it harder for providers to deliver the service.
Yeah, I've heard that before in healthcare as well. So pretty common theme there. And then I also wanted to see, what resources do you need right now? So like, are you trying to expand? Do you need capital, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so our biggest push right now is really getting the opportunity out for home partners. So I think everybody, worldwide is feeling the economic crunch of how do we live and sustain with the cost of living going up and trying to balance, like, I don't want to kill myself working so many jobs to make ends meet. So we're really trying to recruit those that are looking for alternative ways of making a livelihood, but also not sacrificing their quality of life. And the professional home partner relationship is great for that. It's kind of a underutilized tool, I think, and an unrecognized career path. It's not glamorous, and it's not a huge resume building thing. It's, like foster parents or stay-at-home moms, like they don't get any glory, but it's an incredible job. So that's path number one. The other resource that we need are land opportunities. So our big push right now is we've got a scattered portfolio of residential properties, and we've got a scattered portfolio of commercial properties that are all serving our people in some sort of way. They're either a day program facility or a place where we provide job training, like a hub, or the homes that they live in. And we found that all populations, all vulnerable populations, seniors, single mothers, workforce housing, sober living, all of the things, they're all looking for community and inclusion. And so our focus now is to bring our IDD population, along with foster kids that have aged out of the system, into communities that they can be integrated with workforce housing and market rate tenants, and share in the community resources. So we would anchor these communities with a community hub. Social work can be there, vocational training, the day programs, probably even some retail opportunities for those in the community to work, and also offer the housing there in an affordable way. So it really would be a self-sustaining community, and a lot of things have to align for that. So we look at a lot of land opportunities to try to develop just the right size community with just the right resources for community and residential, and have it a high density. So it's kind of an affordable housing model that meets a lot of populations.
And this is what you're currently working on? Is that right?
Yeah. So we have our first projects in Missouri, but we look to scale regionally for that. So they're surrounding Midwestern states, Indiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Iowa.
Okay. And then are you located in Missouri? Is that why you picked Missouri?
Yeah. So that's our home base. That's where our home licensure is. But really, this model can be nationwide.
Okay. And then how many other people do you have on your team? You have to have other people, right? Hopefully you're not doing all this by yourself.
Yeah. I certainly couldn't do it by myself. We have a small leadership team. So we have less than 10 leaders that kind of oversee most of our direct care staff. And that direct care staff is a mix of home partners, plus we call them mentors that work at our day programs and also deliver services in the community to someone that might be living in their natural home.
Okay.
All in all, we have about a team of 30 to 35 between leadership and mentors that are delivering services.
Gotcha. Okay. And then we usually ask about finances and transitions of like work environments, right? So if people leave their W-2, going full-time in real estate. So I'm kind of just curious how that shifted for you or changed, maybe like your view on finances or money going from that regular W-2 to like your newer environment.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I pursued my real estate license before I left my W-2. I was in commission-based roles almost my entire adulthood. And so I had a pretty good idea of how to exit the corporate world with living below my means, saving my commission checks, kind of managing my budget tightly. I think it also should be noted that you can utilize a spouse or a partner in some sort of way to maintain lending opportunities with banks. That's important to consider before you exit your W-2, is that you're going to have a gap when you leave your W-2 because you don't have the stable income and you haven't really had a business that's cash flowing long enough to go and get a bank loan or go get any sort of unsecured line of credit. So be mindful of that when you're planning your transition. But for me, it looked like living below my means, kind of building up some cash reserves, building some, like almost seasoning your credit and your tax returns with your business. So make sure your business is cash flowing for a couple of years if possible before you transition out. And then when you make the leap, if you are lucky enough to have a partner to share in that resource pool with, you can also leverage their credit and stability if they're W-2 once you transition.
Yeah, that's some really good advice, I think, especially with this setup. I mean, it was nice that you had that, commission-based business going beforehand, because I think that's one of the key things that people coming from a W-2 and transitioning into more of an entrepreneurship type of experience don't necessarily have, because they, were previously counting on like a very stable, consistent paycheck. And so that's maybe a little bit of a difference from your scenario, but it's a really good point. I'm wondering, thinking along the lines of those differences between the two things as well, any insight into the habits and routines that are a little bit different from when you were working for somebody else in whatever capacity, to now full time, working for yourself and your team that you have now?
Habits, I think habits are really individualized, right? For me, I've always been like a goal-driven, self-governing, pretty self-directed person. So I don't use alarm clocks. I don't have a problem like going out. For me, work is fun because I get fired up about the things that I do, whatever that is. I think you should pursue something that you're genuinely interested in, so you'll have the intrinsic motivation. But if you don't have those and you want to have a business, you just have to start developing those habits, right? You have to use your calendar wisely, usually try to approach condensing time as much as possible. So if you're at your W-2 and you have any downtime, can you utilize that to make a plan for your side hustle or whatever your other business is? If you have a way to just squeeze out a little bit of extra cash flow and reduce your monthly expenses so you can make your transition, you can build up your cash reserves, be mindful of that. Just those 1% or incremental changes you can make to really position yourself for success. And I know a lot of people think that entrepreneurship is sexy and they want to leave their W-2 as quickly as possible because the grass is always greener on the other side. But you're going to find yourself working way harder with long-term. You got to have like the long game in mind, right? There's not an immediate gratification if you're not getting a paycheck Friday automatically. So just change your mindset on things like that helps you prepare for that. If you're not a self-motivated person, you might want to keep those things in mind and make a game plan that you can like enforce the habits with.
Yeah, that's really good insight. I love how your transition was just a little bit different than maybe other people's, and I think that has given us some great insight for this podcast. So I really appreciate your answers, and they've been very thoughtful. So curious, because outside of just kind of the hustle of the entrepreneurship and the side things and getting the extra things fit in, Liz and I also really like traveling and getting outside and really enjoying some of the life we've got while we're building wealth, rather than waiting until the very end, or retirement or something like that to kind of get started living really. And so curious if you have any upcoming bucket list travel or things you're hoping to accomplish in the next couple of years.
Yeah, so my family, my wife and I have 2 girls, and so they're of the age now, they're 6 and 8, that we feel like we're confident about international travel. They're not just, they can do a little more for themselves. And so part of our family bucket list is to do some more international travel. We have some trips planned to South Africa and Spain coming up soon. So I'm a little nervous about the flight times with 2 young kids, right? Because they can't sit still. So a long flight seems almost torturous, but I also don't want to deprive them of those opportunities. And, I know that we talk about like hobbies and fulfilling life, but I really, as you mentioned, Liz, I do get excited about the people we serve and seeing their growth. And so part of my bucket list is like seeing these communities to fruition, because part of our goal is to develop places where we'd like to live ourselves and share in that community. So we'd almost be a nomadic family, splitting our time between the communities that we've built and sharing in the community resources and meeting the people that live in the communities and being a part of them, and positioning those communities in places that we'd like to live ourselves. So I'm excited to see that to fruition.
Yeah, that's really, really awesome. And so if people want to work with you or have opportunities for land or anything where they see an opportunity to collaborate, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
I'm very active not very active. I'm involved in Facebook and Instagram. So my handle on Instagram is at Brittani Builds, Brittany spelled with an I. I am reachable there, although I tend to not be as active as I should be and as visible as I should be. Maybe to share my mission, but you can certainly reach me there. I do probably put more time and energy into Avant's Facebook account than my own. So, or email. I can also be reached there. Part of the Sub2 community. If you guys are active in that, always reachable in those groups as well.
Oh, that's awesome. And we really appreciate you sharing all of your insight today because it has been really, really valuable. Once again, I love the purpose driven investing. You're clearly passionate about what you're doing and it shows through just every single answer, your facial expressions for anyone who's listening to this who can't see us. I mean, she's just lighting up every single time. And it's a really cool thing to experience. And even just, get to exchange this conversation right now, I can tell just how big this is going to get intentionally though, well developed. I don't have any thoughts that it's going to get out of control, but just, you seem to have a great plan and a great way of approaching things. And I really, really appreciate you sharing that with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a nice reminder to share what we do because it's, again, kind of a thankless position. It's not glamorous, and so it goes under the radar, but it definitely deserves attention. And I think there are more people than we realize that are motivated by some sort of connection to people such as this business. It doesn't have to be this population, but there's many populations, and it's exciting to see a resurgence in social impact and purposeful work tied to business and entrepreneurship. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you everyone else for listening to this week's episode of From Corporate to Cash Flow. We will catch you next week. Hey, it's Andrea. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, I'd love it if you hit subscribe. Thanks so much.